What you see right here is one of the most important trades, one of the most pivotal moves that the Milwaukee Bucks ever made. And it has allowed them to win not only the 2021 NBA Finals, but to contend for NBA championship rings for the foreseeable future, as long as Giannis Antetokounmpo has anything to say about it. Now, people might look at this trade, they might look at the contract extension Jrue Holiday received a couple years ago, and see a guy who hasn't made an all-star team in 10 years. But the truth is that the NBA has a problem. What it constitutes as a star player versus the most valuable players in the league. A lot of guys can score points. A lot of guys can average 20 plus points per game, which is a large reason why Jrue Holiday, a guy who doesn't average 20 points per game, is often left out of conversations like the All-Star Game or All-NBA teams or whatnot. He's just recognized in a different way. A way that is more evident once the playoffs come around. Despite having such a great record as a Milwaukee Buck, I mean, obviously you add him to this team. This is one of the best teams in the NBA, bar none. Frontlined by arguably the best player in the NBA. But no matter how good you are, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, everybody needs help. Everybody needs a number 2 and a number 3. And Jrue Holiday, a lot of people consider him a number 3. Me personally, I've always thought of Jrue and Chris Middleton more as a pair of number 2s, rather than a pecking order that sees Jrue Holiday as the third guy on this team. Because in all honesty, he has been at the forefront of a lot of the biggest moments this team has had in the playoffs, big games, who's gonna step up, make the play, either side of the ball. And Jrue Holiday's value as a player, it really comes down to what type of player do you want running your team. A lot of people love to look at the box score, they like highlights, they like a point guard who scores 25 points a game. He's the best player on a team. Well, the unfortunate thing about that is that it is so rare for a point guard to be the best player on a championship team. There's only one guy who's really done that since Isaiah Thomas. You talk about a superstar, game-breaking point guard who's going to win his team a ring, and it took Steph deep into his career to win that Finals MVP. To be a little guy on a basketball court in a playoff scenario when the game gets more physical, more tough, more defense, what brings true value? Jrue Holiday doesn't have a weakness in his game. He contributes to a game, whatever is asked of him. Maybe not eye-popping numbers when his responsibility isn't to shoot 20 times a game. Guy can shoot 14 times a game and be ultra efficient and not be upset with a role that doesn't see him be the star player on a team. Last couple games we've seen, and the games just when Giannis isn't playing this year. Of course, Chris Middleton has missed basically the whole year. Jrue Holiday has stepped into a role. He has to get 10 assists, and his last couple games, scoring in the high 30s, making huge shots down the stretch, leading his team to W's. Positive record this year without Giannis and Chris, for a team where he is really the sole creator of offense when these guys are not on the court. We saw it last year in the NBA playoffs. Him and Giannis basically took on the Celtics by themselves. Now, they have other players on the team and role players that can do their jobs, but as far as creating offense, they were legitimately toting Grayson Allen as a third option, a tertiary creator. And if Jrue is on the bench, or if Giannis is on the bench, Grayson Allen is your second creator on the court. And you can see how that went. And yet and still, this team takes the Celtics, the best defensive team in the league at that point, to 7 games. And we can go through Jrue Holiday in the playoffs when he has to do more, when he has to unleash a greater level of production on both sides of the ball. How about in 2018 going up against Portland, a series as the lower seed in this case, taking on Dame and CJ and making life hell for them, giving them 28 points per game on the other end. Yes, he's playing with Anthony Davis. AD needs his perimeter defender. Jrue Holiday is one of the most feared perimeter defenders in the league. And even though, yes, he's given up high-scoring games, he makes it as tough as it can get. He's arguably the best one-on-one cover in the NBA on the perimeter, and has the ability to give you 20 and 10 on the other end. His mid-range game has gotten so good in the last few years, along with his three-point game, shooting career-high volume and percentage. He's a threat to score from any spot on the floor. This signature step-back jumper is a move that he can get, it seems like, against anybody. The immense strength he has as a guard allows him to cover so much ground stepping back, and good size, he can just shoot over anybody and not be fazed by a contest. The guy has increased his points, assists, rebounds each year since joining the Bucks and just does his job. He just does what's asked of him, even if he might not be having a great scoring game. He is still going to bring leadership, facilitation, and especially hounding, terrorizing defense. There's a lot of guys in this league that can get 30 or 40 against the Charlotte Hornets or the Houston Rockets in their sleep in a November game. And that's great. But a lot of these same players might struggle in these big games. They might have stinkers. And if they do, what are they offering besides that? Can they still impact a game if their shot is not falling? A lot of your star point guards in the NBA right now, what are they doing on the defensive end of the basketball? They might become targets in the playoffs. They're playing hide and seek. They are praying they don't find themselves on an island against an isolation scorer or a bigger guy with size. They do not want that smoke. Jrue Holiday will guard anybody on the floor who dares to dribble the basketball on the perimeter. Switch everything and give you everything that he gives you on the other end. And that becomes so much more important in these bigger games. So what constitutes an all-star in the NBA? It's obviously a regular season award. We're not talking about the playoffs, but we're talking about the best players in the league. Shouldn't the best players in the league have the most all-star appearances? I had a problem last year when LaMelo Ball got selected for the all-star game over Jrue Holiday. Usually the veteran players get the awards before the young guys. But LaMelo Ball has the clout. He's got the hype, he has promise, he has flash, he has highlight plays. Even though he plays for a shitty team, even though he is massively disappointed on the play-in stage, in 2 chances, he puts up great regular season stats, he makes highlight plays, he makes the all-star team. And it's pretty much as simple as that. Whereas Jrue Holiday, people probably see 18 points per game. Even though his efficiency is through the roof last year, he leads all point guards in the NBA in effective field goal percentage. He's not playing that many minutes because his team is so good. He's 47-20 in the games he plays, and yet and still, he's not an all-star. And so the NBA has a problem with what it constitutes as this. We can all agree Jrue Holiday is an all-star caliber player, especially in the big games. This is not the type of guy you want to go up against. I don't know if he's going to make the all-star team this year. I don't know if he's going to make it next year. I don't know if he's ever going to make it again. I don't know if he's going to get the recognition and the respect that he deserves. But I'm making a video because I've been watching this guy play since Philly, and he was good in Philly. But he's only gotten better throughout his career, and he was great in New Orleans, and he's been awesome in Milwaukee, and he truly gives them a chance to contend for a championship if he's on the floor with Giannis and Chris. And speaking of which, let's just talk a little bit about being on a team that's really good. I think a lot of people do see Jrue Holiday and the team that he's on and think it just makes it easy when you get to play with Giannis, when you get to play with great players. You're on a championship team, your job is easier, you have great players around you. And while you cannot deny the greatness of Giannis, the greatness of the Bucks as a team when they have all of their guys, this Bucks team cannot compete for a championship without Jrue Holiday. I mean, remember Eric Bledsoe on this team? There was one year, they lost to Kawhi and the Raptors. They lost 4 games in a row. Lost 4-2 in the Eastern Conference Finals as a 1 seed. That was the best they got with Eric Bledsoe. And Eric Bledsoe, not a scrub, he couldn't shoot the basketball, but he was an excellent defensive player and certainly contributed to the team, but he was not the answer. They massively upgraded him into Jrue Holiday, a guy who can give you that level of defense and better, but also contribute so much more in the offensive end. And Jrue Holiday still is the only guy on this team that does what he does. Giannis is a secondary playmaker. Chris Middleton is not a point guard. Like, Giannis is the point forward. He's like the second point guard on this team because the guard depth on this team has never been good, especially point guard depth. They had Jeff Teague coming off the bench in the finals. They were kind of having a crisis when it came to what are we going to do when Jrue Holiday's on the bench. His value to this team is incredible. He has to do so much regardless. Yeah, he's got great players around him. Where are the creators though? Who's going to get him a catch and shoot shot? Because he's usually the guy that's giving people shots and not vice versa. He is the engine that makes this team go. They need him on the court, and he's an all-star level player, and I'm tired of the disrespect. He just does what his team needs him to do. He's not going to fuck up. He's not going to turn the ball over a million times. He's going to get his guys the ball. He's going to get his shots when he needs to. But he's a coach's dream to have on the court, and he just impacts winning at a level that I don't think you can say the same about some of these other star guards in the league. And I think it's a joke that he's just not in the all-star game, especially last year, and probably not this year. So let me know what you guys think. Just want to give some respect for Jrue Holiday because I think he deserves it. And a lot of people are just seeing what the guy can do as if he's not capable of stuff like this. Other guys have to get shots, and that's his primary responsibility is like, you're playing with Giannis, and a lot of times Chris Middleton. Like, these guys have to shoot. I'll get my shots, and he does, but there is true skill in knowing how to play with other star players. A lot of guys, they can't handle being a number 2 or a 3 if they're used to being a number 1. There's a lot of good examples for this, but take Paul George. I think he's one of the best examples we've seen. Look at what the guy does in Indiana. Look at what the guy does when he's in OKC for that stretch where he is the guy. Look at what he does when Kawhi goes out in 2021, closing out the Utah Jazz, putting up a hell of a fight against the Phoenix Suns. That was a redemption tour of sorts for Paul George, who has historically struggled as the number 2 guy, especially in playoff scenarios. He is just not the same player as a number 2. But a lot of guys have had trouble with this. They want to take the shots, they want to be the guy. Jrue Holiday, there's none of that. He's just going to make big plays when you need him to, and there's no weakness in his game to having him out there. How is he going to make your team worse in any possible capacity? So that's going to do it. Let me know what you guys think. And yeah, this has been Bucketology. Apologize for the lack of videos. I was out of town and my mic broke, so I had a little bit of a crisis, but we're back now. Trying to go full swing, really get rolling here in 2023. And yeah, that's going to do it. Peace out, y'all.